God has always required faith from his people. The question is, how do you define faith? Most who identify as a Christian in America would define faith as a noun, while the staff and the caregivers, the children of the Esther Project in Myanmar, define faith as a verb. The difference between the two is as great as east is from the west and is darkness from light. So let me tell you just a little bit about Myanmar and about those who comprise the Esther Project. We're going to throw up some stuff here on the screen. Don't know how much of it you're going to be able to actually make out, but we're going to try it. So this first thing we're going to show up to you, this is Myanmar. You will notice on the one side of Myanmar, we have Thailand. We have Laos up in the very corner of it. We have China up on the top over there. We have India nestled up over on the right-hand side of it on the west, and a little bit of Bangladesh nestles up to it. Then you have the Sea of Bengal down there. If you look closely, you're going to see there's stars outlining the edge of Myanmar in Thailand. Those are refugee camps. There is one star over in Bangladesh. That is a refugee camp. Basically, the people that are refugees there call it hell on earth. It is the last place that you truly want to go, and they do not want them there. Nor do the Thai want those refugee camps there either. And you look in Myanmar, you look down towards the bottom of it, you're going to see a yellow circle. That is the Yangon area. That is the area that we currently work in. Okay, so we work in the greater Yangon area, about 100 square mile area in that area. So that is where our staff, our orphanages, our children are located at. Let's jump to the next map of Myanmar. This is a map of the ethnic minorities in Myanmar. The center portion of that, the gray area, that is the Bamar population. Okay, the Bamar are who we would call Burmese. All the others going around that, those are the minority populations. These are the populations that have historically and have been a long-running civil war with the Bamar population. The military junta is a Bamar junta. The governments in Myanmar have for time and eternity been Bamar. Myanmar is a country that was cobbled together by the British in their colonial days, taking all these different ethnic groups and just smashing them together. You're a country now. It's important to know where these are at, that the center portion of the country is Bamar. The center portion of the country is the agricultural area. It is where you're able to grow rice. It's where they grow the food at. The edges of the country are mountainous and are jungle, are treacherous at best. So if we go to the next map, that is a map that is showing you all of the major conflicts that have occurred in Myanmar over the past 12 months. There's very, very little in that country that is not being contested. There are 40 different militias within Myanmar, comprised of those ethnic groups. There is obviously the government in exile, so it is just one big running battle. The junta, the governing body right now in Myanmar, controls only 17% of the land in Myanmar. When they had the coup back in 2021, about 3 years ago, the junta had, their armed forces there had a little over 500,000 men. They are well armed, they are well supplied. China and Russia continue to pour arms into them. They have aircraft, they have a navy. They are exceedingly well armed, and yet today they have only 150,000 men in their armed forces. It is a war of attrition, and both sides are losing that war. That 150,000 is going to pose a problem, and that's what we'll end up getting to here. There is a nonprofit organization that's called the Action on Armed Violence, and it warns that the conflict in Myanmar excuse me, as it enters into its third year, is a tragic testament to the escalating use of explosive weaponry in warfare, marking a period of intense and underreported violence. Data reveals a staggering 114% increase in explosive weaponry attacks by the military over the past 12 months. Another nonprofit, Peace Research Institute in Oslo, has issued a stark warning that should the violence in Myanmar continue to escalate, the nation will be on the brink of a politicide. A politicide is similar to a genocide. It is a deliberate physical elimination of a group of people whose members share a particular ideology. In this case, those who long for democracy. There is a final nonprofit organization that tracks wars going across the world, and it's called the Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project. They identify Myanmar as the most violent among the 50 wars that are currently raging around the world, with an estimated death toll of at least 50,000 civilians since the 2021 military coup. Just this past year, the civilian death toll jumped sevenfold. The conflict has displaced approximately a little underneath 3 million people, and over 3,000 villages, towns and villages, have been completely destroyed. When we hear numbers like that, sometimes it's hard to put it and get a picture of exactly what we're talking about. On my first trip into Myanmar, it's been over a decade ago, I went up to a small village in Rakhine State. It is an area that is intensely fought over right now. I was one of the very first Westerners in that area in 60 some odd years. We got a picture of some of the kids in that village. Cute as can be. They didn't know what to make of this white devil. This is the community council that I met with there. So I want to hold on this picture for just a second. So these are the people that we discussed, and that all of you and those of you who are aligned, we came to an agreement that we would build them a school, that we would provide clean water. We got water filtration into that area. If I were to go back there today and have this exact picture taken again, this is what that picture would look like. That's it. They're all gone. They are either dead or they are internally displaced. The village has been flattened by artillery bombardment. So when I talk about 3,000 villages and towns, you need to understand that I'm talking about people. In Myanmar, a civilian is 2.5 times more likely to be injured or killed in a violent event than the second highest risk country, Afghanistan. It is a dangerous place for the civilians. Since this past October, the military junta has suffered significant defeats, primarily on the west side in the Rakhine State and on the northeast side in Shan State. The result of those defeats have been, if you are a general for the junta and you lose a fight, the penalty for that is death. The junta has executed 3 of their leading generals for losing those battles. But they have also, because of their losses, the military has imposed a new law that is to take effect. And that law is straightforward and fairly simple. In the United States, we would call it a draft. Over there, it is more like you are shanghaied. For all adults, all men, adults, 18 to 35, you are required now to serve in the military for a period of 2 to 5 years, which can be extended beyond that. If you do not serve that time period, you get to serve it in prison, which the prisons in Myanmar basically means that you have been given a death sentence. Okay. If you if you attempt to leave the country, this is where it gets dicey. If you attempt to leave the country, if I was there and I attempted to leave and I left my wife or my children behind and they came to get me and I wasn't there, well, they're just going to take my wife and my children. So it is an all or nothing scenario. The way that you are recruited is you happen to be out on the street and you go to work and you never come home. You're just arrested and welcome to the military. It is a particularly brutal method of doing things. What they are doing is, you see all those ethnic groups that I had up there earlier. Excuse me. They are recruiting Chin to fight Chin, Shan to fight Shan, Kachin to fight Kachin, family member to fight family member. It is a kill or be killed. If, much like the Russians did with their prisoners, put them up at the front line and there is no retreat. If you retreat, we shoot you. That's the situation that the Esther Project is currently working in. When we started the Esther Project, we started it 8 years ago. A real simple idea. Let's take care of 38 kids and give them hope and give them a future. It obviously has morphed into much more than that. We now care for more than 1,000 children. We have a staff of almost the number of kids that we initially were taking care of. We provide food, emergency medical care to these children, as well as we maintain our primary focus of providing vocational skill training to provide these children with hope and a future. The issue that we are now confronting, however, is that virtually all of our staff is between the ages of 20 and 33. Each member of our staff, if you had the chance to meet them, you would understand that they are each enormously dedicated to their calling to take care of the orphan, to take care of the desperately poor, to take care of the widowed. To them, there is absolutely no doubt in their mind that they are there to provide these children with hope and a future. To them, faith is a verb. That brings me back to that question back in Mark 4 that we have to answer. Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith? This is not a question about faith as a noun, but faith as a verb. Faith is action, not just some passive belief. Do you believe to the point of acting on your faith? Now, the staff of the Esther Project has answered that question by how they choose to live. They've answered that question 365 days a year for the past 8 years. And while we are planning for a normal year this year, for the staff to continue to do the work that we have been doing over the past 8 years, while that is the primary goal, we had our first emergency board meeting in our organization's history last week. We are now at the point of where we are needing to draw contingency plans to extract our people out of the country. To assist with doing that, we are putting together a very, very small team. We'll be headed to Myanmar in May, God willing. Some of the staff has already made the determination that they are going to stay, that they will take their chances with the military. So we are going to need to retrain in case we have to execute the contingency plans. So there will be some training that will go on that. There will also be some talking to the staff that is at the point of where we need to get out. There are many logistical issues in doing that, as well as significant financial hits that will occur to execute that plan. We do not intend to abandon the children, which is why we are encouraging as many of the staff to remain behind as possible, so that the children still, while we may not be able to operate our entire program, we will still operate part of the program. We will still be there reminding them that there is faith, that there is hope, that we will not, under any circumstances, abandon them. The reason that we are looking at pulling our staff out is simply our staff is of that group and of the ethnicity that they are the targeted group. The issue of that becomes we can't just take our staff member out. We have to take the staff member, his wife, and all of his children. If you remember, if you're looking at the map, Yangon is kind of center bottom of that. It is not going to be an easy journey to get them out of the country. It would not be a safe journey to get them out of the country. If we have to execute this plan, once we get them out of the country, we then still have another problem. And that problem would be we now have refugees in another country that we are going to need to figure out a means to provide support to. That's the situation that we find ourselves in. That is where we are headed. We are drawing up parallel plans, one for a normal year, as normal as possible over there, and one where we are extracting our personnel in various means, various methods. We do have a time frame on this, though, because the monsoon season is going to be approaching. And once the monsoon season hits, it will be practically impossible for us to get our people out of there. Or like the staff of the Esther Project, who every single day choose to walk out their door. They choose to care for the orphaned and the desperately poor and the widowed, knowing that their choice puts them in harm's way, that they're the ones that are being targeted by the junta, that returning home to their spouse and their children is definitely not a guaranteed thing. Yet they see what we choose to blind ourselves to, that when we put faith into action, change starts to occur, both in our lives and in the lives of those who we encounter. I want you to think about that. Think of your life. Things can be different. The story of the Esther Project, the story of Jesus and his disciples remind us that faith helps us. In fact, faith demands of us that we do things that other people will not do.